Okay, cheers everyone. Get those wine glasses ready because today we are diving deep into Pinot Grigio. That light, refreshing white that seems to be on everyone's table these days. We've got a ton of interesting stuff to get into today, from the heart of Italian vineyards to some seriously unexpected food pairings for Pinot Grigio. This is going to be fun.
Definitely. There's a lot more to this wine than meets the eye, or the palate, I should say. By the end of this, you'll be picking out your Pinot Grigios like a true sommelier.
Now that's what I like to hear. And honestly, I was so surprised to learn that Pinot Grigio actually comes from the same family tree as Pinot Noir. That really blew my mind. Who knew such a crisp, bright wine had such a, well, prestigious ancestor?
Right. It's a fascinating little twist in the world of wine history. Essentially, we're talking about a genetic mutation maybe centuries ago that ended up completely changing the game for winemaking. And while Pinot Grigio might have its roots in Burgundy, it really found its home, its heart in Italy.
Totally.
Yeah.
You can't even say Pinot Grigio without picturing those beautiful sun-drenched vineyards in Italy. It's become the wine of northeastern Italy.
Absolutely. It's a huge part of their wine industry.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's not just an old world thing anymore, is it? I mean, you see Pinot Grigio from all over Oregon, Australia, even Chile.
Exactly. It's a testament to how adaptable the Pinot Grigio grape is. But it also means you're going to get some really cool and different flavors depending on where those grapes are actually grown.
Okay, so let's talk taste. When I think Pinot Grigio, I think green apple, a little bit of pear, maybe some citrus. Am I on the right track?
You nailed it. Those are the classic aromas you'll find in most Pinot Grigios. And that really nice acidity, that light to medium body, and that crisp, clean finish. That's classic Pinot Grigio. But, there's actually a surprising amount of work that goes into creating those seemingly simple flavors. Growing Pinot Grigio is a real balancing act.
Oh, I bet. It can't be easy getting those perfect flavors out of the vineyard. What are some of the challenges that go into it?
Well, first of all, Pinot Grigio is a bit picky about the weather. It needs a cool to moderate climate with, ideally, a pretty big difference between the daytime and nighttime temperatures.
Interesting.
Yeah. Regions like northern Italy and France's Alsace region are perfect examples of this.
Alsace. Now, for those of us who don't have our European wine regions memorized, can you give us a quick little geography lesson?
Of course. Picture this northeastern France right next to Germany. Think rolling hills, cute little villages, and of course, amazing wine. It's a bit cooler than other French wine regions, which is why it's so good for Pinot Grigio.
Okay, so cool climate is key for good Pinot Grigio.
Hmm.
What about the soil? Does that make a difference in the taste?
Huge difference. Think of it as the foundation of the flavor. Pinot Grigio really thrives in well-drained soil, not too fertile, and ideally with some good minerals in it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that mineral-rich soil is really what adds that extra layer of depth and complexity to the wine.
This is what I love about wine, learning about all these little factors that contribute to that final sip. It's like solving a puzzle.
I agree. And just like there are all these different regional variations, there are also different styles of Pinot Grigio. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of wine.
Wait, hold on. Different styles of Pinot Grigio. Tell me more. Hooked.
Yeah. Think of it like this, just like you've got your different types of apples, right?
Yeah.
Your Granny Smiths, your Honeycrisps, your Fujis. Pinot Grigio is kind of like that, different expressions, different experiences.
Okay, I like that. I can definitely get behind that analogy. So where do we start? What's like the classic Pinot Grigio experience?
Well, we got to start in Italy. The classic Italian style is what really put Pinot Grigio on the map. Those really crisp, clean flavors, the bright citrus, the green apple, like we talked about. It's a real crowd pleaser, and it goes with almost anything.
Yeah, that's the Pinot Grigio I'm most familiar with for sure. But you were saying there are other styles. Like what else is out there?
Right. When you head over to the New World, things start to get a little more, shall we say, adventurous. You'll find those same classic flavors, but bigger, bolder. You might get some tropical fruit notes, and the aromas are really going to hit you.
Okay, see, now that's what I'm talking about. That sounds like my kind of Pinot Grigio. But are there any Pinot Grigios out there for those of us who, like a little more complexity, like something with a bit more depth?
Oh, absolutely. Pinot Grigio can definitely do complex. For those adventurous palates, you got to try the oak-aged stuff.
Oak-aged. Now, that's not something you hear every day. Oak-aged Pinot Grigio. I'm intrigued. What does oak aging even do to the flavor?
It adds a whole other layer, a whole other dimension to the wine. Think vanilla, spice, even a little hint of toasted nuts sometimes. And the texture changes too. It's going to be a bit richer, a bit creamier on the palate, really different from your typical, like, crisp Pinot Grigio.
You know what? You've got me rethinking my entire Pinot Grigio game here. I need to get my hands on a bottle of that oak-aged stuff. But speaking of getting your hands on a bottle, I'm sure people listening are wondering, what do you actually drink this with?
It's true. Pinot Grigio has a reputation for being a bit one-dimensional in the food pairing department.
Right, right.
But that's not really giving it enough credit, you know? So let's talk about food pairings. You've got your classic pairings, light fish, fresh seafood, salads. That crisp acidity in the Pinot Grigio cuts through any richness and really cleanses your palate. But it can go beyond the typical seafood thing, believe me.
Yeah, that's what I always enjoy about good Pinot Grigio, like a little palate cleanser,
Yeah.
you know. But I am so ready to branch out. So what else goes well with this wonder wine?
Well, this is where things get interesting. Don't be afraid to think outside the box a little bit. Ever thought about pairing it with sushi, for example?
Sushi and Pinot Grigio.
Yeah.
I can't say that's ever crossed my mind.
You might be surprised, especially if you're having sushi with those lighter, more delicate fish like snapper, yellowtail, things like that. The acidity in the wine is going to cut through that fattiness in the fish so nicely. It's a match made in heaven.
Okay, you've officially expanded my culinary horizons.
Yeah.
What else should we add to our list of unexpected Pinot Grigio pairings?
Don't sleep on lighter vegetarian dishes. Grilled vegetables, salads with some goat cheese, even pasta primavera, all fantastic with a nice Pinot Grigio.
So good. See, this is why I love these deep dives. I'm already planning my next dinner party menu around all these pairings. But before we get too carried away with all this delicious food and wine, let's touch on something just as important, sustainability. I mean, the wine world is changing, right?
Absolutely. Sustainability is becoming the gold standard in the wine world.
Right.
People really care about where their wine is coming from and how it's made.
Yeah, they want to feel good about what's in their glass.
Yeah.
So how does Pinot Grigio stack up when it comes to sustainability? What are we seeing out there?
Well, we are seeing a lot of Pinot Grigio producers making big strides when it comes to sustainable practices. There's been a real surge in organic and biodynamic wines, which is great.
For sure, for sure. And remind us, what's the difference again between those two terms, organic versus biodynamic? I always mix those up.
So basically, organic winemaking means no synthetic pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers. It's all about working with nature, not against it.
Got it, got it.
Biodynamic viticulture takes things a step further. It treats the entire vineyard as one big interconnected ecosystem.
So it's like a more holistic approach.
Exactly. Biodynamic vineyards focus on things like biodiversity, composting, and even following the cycles of the moon for planting and harvesting. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, but even with the best, most sustainable practices in place, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, right? Climate change is a huge challenge for vineyards around the world.
It's a real concern, no doubt. Pinot Grigio loves those cooler temperatures we talked about. Too much heat and those grapes ripen too fast, you lose that beautiful acidity, throws a whole flavor profile off.
That's no good. So what can winemakers even do? Are they just like crossing their fingers and hoping for the best?
Not at all. They're actually getting super creative with how they adapt. Some are trying out different grape varieties that can handle a little more heat. Others are moving their vineyards to higher altitudes where it's naturally cooler.
Oh, right. Like up the mountainsides looking for those cooler pockets of air.
Yeah.
So smart.
Exactly. And get this, they're even changing how they prune the vines.
Really?
Yeah. By pruning them in a certain way, they can create a canopy of leaves that actually shades the grapes from the most intense sunlight. Pretty cool, right?
That's incredible. Talk about dedication.
Yeah.
It really shows you how much thought and care and, well, ingenuity goes into protecting these grapes, especially as the climate changes.
It really does. And you know, it all comes back to those different styles of Pinot Grigio. It's not about trying to preserve just one single flavor profile. It's about making sure that all those amazing variations can survive and thrive.
You know what? I started this deep dive thinking Pinot Grigio was kind of basic, maybe even a little boring, but I was so wrong. There is so much to discover and appreciate about this wine.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's what these deep dives are all about.
For sure. Okay, so we covered a ton of ground today. We talked history, we talked terroir, we even got into oak-aged Pinot Grigio.
Mm-hmm.
If our listeners take away just one thing from all of this, what do you hope it is?
That's a good one. I hope the next time they're at the store staring at a wall of Pinot Grigio, they don't just grab the first bottle they recognize.
Yeah.
I hope they remember what we talked about today and use that knowledge maybe about the different regions or those oak age styles to pick out a bottle that really excites them.
Yes, I love that. Like you're empowering our listeners to become their own Pinot
Yeah.
Grigio expert.
Exactly. Go forth and explore all those amazing flavors.
Well said. Cheers to that. And to all of you listening, thank you so much for joining us today for this incredible journey into the world of Pinot Grigio. Until next time, keep exploring, and most importantly, enjoy that glass of wine.